This is Rob Lay, 1980s sports cards, and today we're gonna take a break from breaking and we're gonna talk about pre-grading cards and sending them off to PSA. I know a lot of this will be stuff you already know, stuff you've already experienced. Some of it you know, some of you don't, but overall, hopefully you can learn something. And if not, you certainly know a lot more than I do, and I would appreciate your feedback and also the other viewers, so please comment. But what we're going to do is we're going to go through some of the different rounds of pre-grading and grading I have done and what I learned from it and what I suggest. And we're going to kind of jump around. I don't have a script or not too organized, so we're going to jump around, but hopefully there's some value here for everybody. So let's just start off. So right here in front of me, I have graded cards, and this started my journey with PSA. These are all sets that I had in my personal collection from when I was a kid. I've owned these for almost 40 years now because I collected these 85 Donners, 86 Tops Traded, in 85 and in 86. So that's 40 years now. And these were all in sealed sets. Most of these I did not touch. I did not have them in binders like we used to do to all the cards. We'd open from wax. So most of these did not come from wax. They came from factory sets. And I don't know. I was kind of naive when I sent these all in. I'm like, well, they've never been touched by a human hand. I'll send them in and I'm going to get all 8s, 9s, and 10s. Well, that is not what happened. For the most part, they were 6, 7s. And I was very disappointed and a very expensive lesson learned. Not only did I break up my sets, I didn't get any value back from the graded PSA cards. Now that I know more, now that I've learned more, hopefully I can share with you. I look at these cards, I'm like, yeah, it's obvious. It's obvious why they didn't score well. So let me share a few of those here with you. Let's start with the older ones, like the 82 Donners Ripken. So all the 80s cards are hard to gem. They're hard to grade. Surface centering was awful. So for all the reasons a card would get a bad grade, the 80s cards tend to stick out and get them. And plus, I think the PSA graders know what the past gem rates are. So when they're seeing cards like this that have a 5 or 10% or less gem rate, no matter what the card looks like, I think they're going to be a little bit pickier on it. But anyway, just looking at these, I mean, this is an okay grade for an 82 Donners, a 7, but you can look at it up close, how bad the centering is left to right. Top to bottom's pretty good. The corners are good. The edges are good. But that centering is awful. I'm actually surprised it even got a 7 now, looking at it. But the same thing, going to a Wade Boggs 6. Terrible top to bottom centering, plus some corner and edge issues. It looks a little worn there on the corners. So this now is an obvious 6 that came out of my 83 top set. Don Mattingly, this may have been one of the few cards. This was not a sealed set, but a factory set, and I probably handled this card a little bit more than the others. But obvious the centering, look at that right side, how tight it is. So yeah, that's a hard 5, but it was probably handled as well too, so that knocked it down to a 5. I don't think the centering by itself would knock it all the way to a 5. So there were some other issues going on. Now we got a couple 85 Donners, my favorite set, as I've said many times. This is a tough card to grade. The black borders really show the edges and the corners really well. But they're in good condition. I don't remember handling these cards ever, and now looking at them, the corners and the edges look good. Just not perfect centering. They're not bad centering, but they're not great. So you've got PSA 7s here on those cards. Now these disappointed me, but gives us a little bit more insight because I had 2 Tops, 86 Tops Traded sets. So I sent both of them in, the Bo Jacksons 2 Bo Jacksons and 2 Barry Bonds. So one's a 6 and then one's an 8 off center. I mean, it's obvious looking at the right how shortcut the top of that Bo Jackson is for the 8 off centered. Otherwise, a pretty tight card. I'm not sure exactly why this got a 6. It's pretty tight on top as well, but there must be some corner edge issues as well. So again, common theme so far, how hard they are with the grades. Barry Bonds, same thing. We got a 6, we got a 7. Pretty tight centering on the top. Not great left to right. I don't know about other issues, but pretty low grades. So once I got those cards in, I was pretty darn disappointed, and it kind of woke me up to how tough PSA is. So I did a lot of research, watched a lot of videos, how to pre-grade them myself. This is really the only set I broke from my 40-year-old personal collection that came back pretty good. A Mint 9 and an 86 Donruss Conseco. And looking at it, yeah, it's got good centering. Don't see any corner issues, surface, edges. You know, that's an overall lesson learned with the 80s cards is don't expect a 10. If you get a 10 back, it's a miracle. Just don't expect them. I mean, if you're looking at a card and to your eye, it looks perfect, you know, maybe on the best day, expect a 9. But you just really can't expect 10s on your 80s cards. But if, you know, you do get one back, then you won the lottery. But here's a beautiful card, and it's a 9. So that was my experience with grading my original personal collection cards. And going forward, you know, I've been buying a lot of 85 boxes, not 85, sorry, a lot of 80s wax boxes. And then I have also been buying a few sets like the 85 Topps Tiffany. And then I open them and break them. And then I'm getting a lot better at pre-grading them. So what I have here is my stack of 85 Topps Tiffany. And I basically came up with 3 categories. I took all the cards out, and here real quick, my philosophy with what I'm going to grade or not going to grade is I look at the market values. And my grade, you know, not being optimistic, not being pessimistic, but what I think is probably a 50% probability on the grade, like a PSA 8, PSA 7, I look at the market value. And if it's around $40, $50, then I'm willing to take the risk. And then, you know, 25% I'm optimistic and I'm hoping for a higher grade, and 25% pessimistic, I'd be disappointed with a lower grade. So all of these wax boxes I'm opening, all the sets I'm opening, like the 85 Topps Tiffany, that's my philosophy, is I pre-grade it looking for a 50% probability. And if that market value on that card for that grade is $40, $50 or more, then I take the risk. Otherwise, I'm just keeping it raw. So let me go through here. We'll go backwards on it. So when I broke the 85 Topps Tiffany, I went ahead and I sent the Gooden, the Clemens, and the McGuire out for rush grading. And mainly that's because they were decent looking cards, and value-wise, you know, they hold their value. I mean, they're 5-digit cards on the PSA 10s, which I wasn't expecting. Still 4-digit cards on the 9s. But even in the 8s, the 7, 6, there's some value there. You know, even if I grade that low, it will pay for the grading. So I sent these 3 off for initial grading, and pretty happy with how it came out. The McGuire's an 8. But you can look at the card. I mean, eyeball, very good eye appeal, very good centering, no surface corner issues, whatever, but it's still an 8, not a 9, not a 10. Same thing with the Clemens. I thought this was even a better card than the McGuire, and it came back an 8. Now, the one we got a 9 on is the Gooden, and this is a gorgeous card. I think it's equivalent to the Clemens, so that makes me wonder if they're looking at the values and the past population rates and gave this one a 9, but not the Clemens, even though a similar card. But who knows? The grader may have seen something in the Clemens that I didn't see. But so these were the top end cards that I've already had graded. Now I'm going to show you the cards that I haven't graded yet. I'm just going to send them in for the regular service. So I'll pay the $20 each and expect it to take 3 to 4 months to get them back. But so all these cards, I believe, based on my pre-grade, can value at $40 to $50 or more. We got a Nolan Ryan, you can look there. Perfect centering. Darryl Strawberry. It's a little tight on the bottom, but just because of the value of the Darryl Strawberry card, I'm willing to take the risk. Kirby Puckett. That could be, okay, so here's a card that, you know, I would have done the Rush PSA service as well, just because of the value of this card. But you can see how off-centered it is. So it's really, really off-centered. So that's why I didn't do the Rush PSA. I'm just going to do the regular service. But I don't expect more than like a 7 on this. But even in a 7, you know, hopefully get my grade money back. Earl Hershiser is not that valuable of a card, but you can see perfect centering to the eyeball. Ozzie Smith, not great centering, but, you know, that's kind of a borderline card, whether to grade or not, but I'm going to go ahead and go forward with it. Cal Ripken, look how pretty the centering is on this card. Again, not a tremendously valuable card, but man, some of these, I don't expect a 10 like I said, but out of this whole stack of cards, you know, I really do expect 1 or 2 10s. Don Manley, pretty good card, a little off center top to bottom. But yeah, I think it can still pull in a PSA 8, PSA 7 and get my money back. Joe Morgan, not sure about this one. Just a little bit rare card, not graded very often, so there's some good values on them, but yeah, not great centering. Brett Saberhagen, this was a hot card in the 80s, not so much since then, but still some value to it. Looks to the eye as perfect centering. Tony Gwynn, a little off-centered, but not too bad. Cal Ripken, a little off-centered, not too bad. Steve Garvey, so here's one that's definitely not, you know, a lot of value in it, but this is just a perfect card. This is just a perfect card, and if it were to get a 10 or a 9, you know, there's some value there, so it's worth the risk. Eric Davis, this could be a valuable card, but I didn't do the Rush service just because it's not perfect. Top to bottom, you can tell it's a little bit off. Keith Hernandez, not a great card, value-wise or centering, but probably borderline. Nolan Ryan, this card in a good grade, actually has some good value to it, and it's a pretty good-looking card. Same thing with the Pete Rose, not perfect, but can have some value there. So that kind of shows you pre-grade-wise which ones made the cut. Now let me show you the cards that did not make the cut. And again, these are all 85 Topps Tiffany. Steve Garvey, and this is the record breaker card. So not only is this not a valuable card, but the centering's off. Pete Rose, record breaker, centering a little off. Joe Morgan, centering way off. Dwight Gooden, record breaker, centering way off. Tony Gwynn, centering off. Ricky Henderson, all-star, not as a valuable card, and the centering just, you know, not perfect. Ricky Henderson, this is a great card, actually. You know, this is a pretty good card in the set, but you can tell left to right, the centering is just pretty bad. George Brett, not a valuable card and centering off. Ozzie Smith, not a valuable card and centering really, really bad. Wade Boggs, okay card, but centering off. Corey Snyder, not a very valuable card and centering way off. Darryl Strawberry, centering off, not valuable. Tom Seaver, not a valuable card and way off. Ryan Sandberg is, you know, these are okay cards, just, you know, not worth the PSA fee and shipping and all that, if not centered. We'll go through these quickly. Keith Hernandez, same thing. Pete Rose is an okay card, off-centered. George Brett, off-centered. Carlton Fisk. So you can see how picky I am going forward, which ones I'm sending in and which ones I'm not even bothering with the grade. You know, a PSA 5, 6, or 7, which a lot of these cards in this stack would get, man, that's just a death sentence. At that point, it's almost better just to cut it, to break it, and sell it raw. So I'm trying to save myself that trouble and just keep it raw from the beginning. So that's really, so the 85 Topps Tiffany I've already been through, but just to give you an example of kind of like some live pre-grading and, you know, just a little story. I do have a jeweler loop here that I can really look and you can really see the details in the corners and edges. But fortunately for baseball cards and unfortunately for the rest of my life, I'm born with a pretty bad eye defect, really bad stigmatism, and I'm really, really nearsighted, which means I'm very blind, seeing signs and things far away, even watching TV and reading text. But then on the flip side, I'm very blessed with having really, really good vision, even at 51 years old, up close. So I don't need reading glasses or anything, and I'm really good at eyeballing these raw cards and seeing edges and corners and surface. I still like to look at through the loop sometimes and give it 2 or 3 reviews, but I'm really getting a good idea on the centering and the corners and surface and all the things important to PSA, and look at a card pretty quick and get a good idea. So we're not going to go through all of these. These are the ones I've pulled for pre-grading after two wax boxes of 85 Donner Sleeve. So I'll go through them 2 or 3 times to pick out which cards I grade and which cards I leave raw. But like this George Brett, near perfect centering, not a terribly valuable card, but with that centering there, I'm probably going to grade that. This George Brett, not quite as good a centering, probably 5% off from the prior one. So this one's going to be borderline making the cut. Pete Rose, not perfect centering, but looking at the value and everything, that might be a borderline card to grade. Darryl Strawberry, a little more valuable card, and the centering is pretty good, so that's going to be a gradable card. Another Darryl Strawberry, a little worse centering than the prior one. That's going to be borderline whether to grade it or not. Kirby Puckett, one of the more valuable cards in the whole set, but you can tell top to bottom, right to left, it's not good centering, so this is maybe a PSA 7 or 8 at best. So we'll have to look at the values and see if it's worth it. It probably still will be. It's probably still a $40, $50 card in a PSA 7 or 8. This Kirby Puckett has even worse centering. Look how tight it is on the top. This one may not even make the cut. Leave it raw. Ricky Henderson, left to right. Look how bad this centering is. Ricky Henderson, left to right. Look how bad the centering is. Ryan Sandberg, look how bad the centering is. Those are all cards just to keep raw. Another Kirby Puckett, bad centering, tight top, tight right. But just because of the value, we'll consider it. Pete Rose, tight top, tight right. Or a horse sizer, sorry, starting to mix up the words, but you don't have a valuable card and you've got terrible centering, so that's definitely a card to keep raw. Darryl Strawberry, that's a pretty card, but I don't know if you notice. Look when I turn it a little bit, you notice that top right edge? That could kill the card. So it's got great, pretty good centering, but that top right edge, not the corner, the top right edge, you can see that white sticking out, really stands out in the 85 Donners. That could kill the card right there. So, that's just the way it goes. And going through these 85 Donners, I've got a separate video on it. There's not a lot of, that Dwight Gooden there is about as good as it gets. That just the centering on 95% of these cards just isn't good. But look at the eye appeal of that. All the edges look good. The corners, the surface, the centering. But look, that was just a piece of cardboard on the edge, so it came off. I was about ready to say there was a surface issue. But, man, that's a gradable card right there. That's what we're looking for. So I know I've carried on, I've jumped around, but that's kind of my approach. I don't wet the cards, I don't polish the cards or anything, and I get a lot of grief. Like my 85 Tiffany set break, I get a lot of grief for handling the cards without gloves on. I don't like the gloves, the surface abrasion, and also my hands sweat in them, so the risk of that sweat getting out. And you look at breakers that are handling $100,000 cards, $50,000 cards potentially, and, they're all collating them and going through them just like I am with the thumbs. However, what I do is I take a microfiber cloth and very gently, do the surface so there's no fingerprints. And you just, you're not getting them wet, you're not polishing them, you're not doing anything that you shouldn't be doing. But it's okay. And actually, PSA going forward is thinking about offering that service where they will clean the surface. And, so certainly, especially handling it like I do with the thumbs. And people that give me grief about handling it with the thumbs, well, would you rather be picking it off the table and grabbing the edges, especially like for an 85 Donruss? I think that's going to cause you a lot more problems than just being gentle like this with clean hands. And then the ones you grade, it's okay to go back with a microfiber and just wipe the fingerprints and any dust off. So anyway, that's how I approach pre-grading the 80s cards and what I grade, what I don't. And, because you can waste a lot of money. You don't want to send everything in for a grade. You're just throwing $20 to $30 away, and you'll end up with a card that could be worth less than even the raw card. So hope you enjoyed, and I appreciate everyone's expert views and opinions in the comments. Thank you.